the life and times of an idiot, or actually more like the life and death of an idiot. Like that's the best way to describe aesthetics of a bullet.
わいは天遊会の小池清じゃ。
So, Aesthetics of a Bullet is a 1973 Japanese Yakuza movie directed by Sadao Nakajima, and it stars Tsunehiko Watase, Miki Sugimoto, and Mitsuru Mori. I'm pretty sure I butchered those names. So, what's fascinating about this movie is, like last night, I watched a Yakuza movie, like I watched a whole bunch of them. So, I watched this movie called Rogue Outlaw Rekka, which is from like the early 2000s. It's directed by Meek Takeshi. And watching that, I sort of started to realize that most Yakuza movies have like a very standard formula, which is usually the formula will be like there is a boss, generally a nice boss. The boss gets killed. And then there is a loyal underling, like not the second in command, a few rungs down the hierarchy. And he's very loyal and he wants to take revenge. And then there is a second in command who is usually more opportunistic and he wants a truce or wants to figure out a way to take over the gang and like all of that stuff. So he will usually manipulate our loyal underling, who is our hero, and get him to commit a few murders or whatever so that he can establish his control over the gang, and then eventually sort of betray our hero or backstab him. And then in the end, usually our loyal underling will take revenge and the second in command will die, and the loyal underling will also die in the process. So that's usually how most of these films work. Until you watch something like Aesthetics of a Bullet, which sort of goes off in a completely different direction. And it sort of turns a Yakuza movie into a character study. So which is what makes it genuinely interesting. So the movie was made under a banner called ATG, which is Art Theatre Group. So it was like a sister concern of, I think, Toei Studios. Like Toei Studios wanted to start like a smaller studio which would do more like artsy stuff. So thus the name Art Theatre Group. And when this movie starts, you immediately sort of realize like, oh, this is not, like they're trying to do something different. Like the director has a little more freedom than what, your usually sort of factory-made B-level Yakuza movie would allow them to do. So the movie starts off with like this punk rock soundtrack, and you have like a lot of close-ups of like stuff, so it's like a very consumer capitalist kind of a thing, like lots of clothes and shoes and cars and stuff like that. And then it starts focusing on food, and a lot of people like eating a lot of food, so it looks very gross and like a lot of gluttony. And then when it eventually cuts to the hero is like this low life crook / street vendor, and he's trying to sell these sort of impoverished rabbits to people who are like, oh look, cute bunny, you can keep it in your house as a pet, and stuff like that. He's like anything to make money.
Na, why? Kondo inu kau do?
Inu?
There. Ketto shino tsutoraccha. Goru no shito mo na, Doberman. Are ni komaishite 1匹20万って売ったで。いや、親の貸してくれんね。
And so the great thing about the movie is it doesn't really hide what is going on. So in the beginning, like once the titles end, you end up in like this sort of very dark pub. Okay, and what the director does very interestingly is like he's like, I'm not going to hire like a Yakuza gang, like actors to play a Yakuza gang. So you just get a voiceover. So what you get is like you get a bunch of people like sitting in the shadows, wearing like suits and sunglasses and stuff, and you just get like a voiceover. So the plan is that there is this gang in Tokyo, I'm assuming it's Tokyo. I kind of forgot. Anyway, so the plan is that they want to take over the turf of some other gang, and the way they want to do it is using something called a bullet. In our, so a bullet is like a patsy, okay, like a fall guy. So what they want to do is like hire some idiot off the street, some low life criminal, in our case the hero, and tell him like, oh, congratulations, you've joined our gang, and then give him some money and give him a gun and send him off to that city to start shit. Like just go and create mayhem, and eventually the gang will kill him, like the other gang, and that will give these guys an excuse to start a turf war. Like, oh, you killed one of our guys, so they just get in and and that allows them to take over the other gang stuff. Of course, the hero doesn't know this.
それと何より大切なのは腕っぷしや。頭の割には己のことを恵まれとらんと思ってるやっちゃ。
Our hero is like, as I said, like he's a street vendor. He'll just sell anything, and whatever money he has, he usually like gambles it away. And he has a girlfriend who works in like a dance club or something, and she really loves him, but he's a dick. So he's not just that he's poor and a bit of a moron, but he's also like, he's got like delusions of grandeur where he wants to be like this big shot, and his girlfriend's like, we can just settle for this, it's a nice life, it's not bad. And he doesn't like all of that, and he kind of beats her up every now and again. So he's not a particularly nice guy. So when he finally gets they spot him, like the movie doesn't show where they spot him or whatever, like he's in a pub one day and causing some usual nuisance, and like one of the guys sees him like, oh, this guy likes to cause trouble, so let's pick him up. So you can get a voiceover where they like, okay, here's some money, they give him like 1,000,000 yen and give him a gun, and like off you go. And so the rest of the movie is like him in that other city and trying to cause trouble. And he very soon realizes that he doesn't have any problems with like beating people up. But when it comes to pulling the trigger and actually killing someone, he doesn't have the guts to do that. And he sort of very quickly realizes like, oh, he can't go beyond that. And which is the reason why they've sent him. So he's kind of useless to them. And what's also interesting is that the other gang, like they kind of know why he's there. So it's not like, oh, who's this guy? Like they know like, oh, they've sent in a bullet. And they're just waiting for us to kill him. So it becomes like an excuse. So they don't, so they do everything that they can to diffuse the situation. So like he goes into one of their pubs once, like a Yakuza-owned pub, and he just causes nuisance. He's like sitting with all the girls and like, this drink is terrible and the surf is terrible, and like he's like stuff like that. And the manager comes out, who's one of the Yakuza guys, like from the other gang, and he's like, oh, I'm very sorry, and like, here, take some more drinks, and I apologize. And so he's like, they're all like groveling at his feet and making sure that, like, oh, we're very sorry. Even though they all are like, we should just kill this guy, he's an idiot. But they're like, we can't do that yet, just keep him happy. So he sort of feels like, oh, he's very important,
天友会の小池清さんですね。
わらなんじゃい。
南球会の杉町です。おいでだと知ってたらもっと早うにご挨拶に上がったんですが、どうも失礼をいたしました。つまらん店ですが、どうかゆっくり遊んでってください。
But then his guys on the other end, like the people who sent him are like, what are you doing? Like, just go kill somebody. Like, that's what you're there for. He's like, no, but they're all very nice to me and everything. So they're kind of like manipulating him very, very nicely. And it's what's interesting is that instead of focusing on like, the power politics of Yakuza gangs, which is what you would get with like a general Yakuza movie, this just focuses on him. And Tsunehiko Watase does like a fantastic job with that, of this blowhard guy. Like you get this very nice scene where he ends up in the city for the first time, and he's like standing in front of a mirror in his hotel room, and like striking poses and trying to introduce himself. Like I was thinking, like, is this something that inspired from Taxi Driver? But actually, this is pre-Taxi Driver. This is 73. Taxi Driver is like 76. So this comes before that. But yeah, he does, like, he's sort of like trying to just puff himself up and be like a big guy.
わいは天遊会の攻撃業者。わいは天遊会の攻撃業者。わいは天遊会の攻撃業者。あかんな。わいは天遊会の攻撃業者。
And then they kind of like, the gang is like, we need to keep him occupied, so they take one of their like top girls and give it to him, and he's like, oh, she's in love with me, because he's a moron. And it charts his downfall like beautifully, because there are moments where you kind of go like, just leave, man, like, by now you should have realized that you're going to get killed, but he doesn't. Like, he's a complete idiot. He sort of thinks like, oh, this is going to be perfectly fine. Like, at one point his girlfriend shows up and she's telling him like, no, we should leave, like, like, this is all going bad, you just need to get out of here. And he's like, oh, like, leave me alone, and you're an idiot, like, I'm a big shot now, and like all of that. So it's really interesting and sort of frustrating to watch him, where you're like, dude, just where you kind of like, it sort of reminds me of something like The Irishman, where you have Al Pacino's character, he's playing Jimmy Hoffa, and there are like so many times where Robert De Niro is telling Jimmy Hoffa like, dude, calm down, like, they're going to kill you, just stop mouthing off. And it's sort of like the same feeling when you watch him, where you were like, dude, just leave, get on a bus, get out of here, find some small town, you have money. And he just doesn't listen. And it's really interesting to watch. Like, the cinematography is nice, it's not great, but Sadao Nakajima does a fantastic job directing the movie. The hero is there, like, I think in like every single frame. There are maybe just a couple of shots where he's not there, but otherwise it's just like 95% of the movie is on him, and this is probably, I've seen him before in other films, but I would probably say this is one of his best roles. And I don't know if he won any awards for this or not, but it is one of the best, Yakuza movies that you can watch. Because it's like, as I said, like, you watch something like Battles Without Honor and Humanity, like the whole series, and that is very standard Yakuza. That's like top tier Yakuza movies. Like, it's a standard plot, but it's like very top tier Yakuza stuff. This is a Yakuza character drama. And I think, like, if you watch this stays in, because if you watch Yakuza movies, they all sort of like blend into one after a while, because they all have very similar plots. This one sort of stays in your head because of the way it sort of functions, and it's just focused on this one guy being an idiot. It's one of those things that really stays in your mind. So yeah, as a recommendation, absolutely. Like, if you ever get the chance, you should watch Aesthetics of a Bullet.